Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Hunger Hunt Feast. I have the privilege of being able to coach a lot of high performers, very highly productive people in their careers, whether they're CEOs, business owners, high performing sales individuals. They have a lot of responsibility. They are um, really they're drivers of our economy. They keep businesses growing and going. Um, and they are, I mean, they're ahead of career wise. They're often way ahead of us, right? Financially, um, they've done well. Um, and as many times I'm seeing them sometimes in their 30s, but often their 40s and 50s. And there is while we're performing at a high level in their career, what has been often uh, left behind or taken a toll is their health. So, buddy, if this is you, stick with me. I'm talking to you, and this is not a dig at you. This is, again, you're my typical client right now at this point in my life, being 50, and understanding the physical um, challenges that things change. We cannot our bodies can't handle the same level of stress or abuse that it did in our 20s and 30s. We cannot push ourselves that way. We cannot feed ourselves that way. That we at a level that we, and get away with it like we could when we were younger. And so there has to be a work smarter attitude rather than a work harder attitude in many cases. Okay, it's strategy because at the pace you are currently working harder doesn't make much sense. And you know this in your job. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's something we need to talk about. But your two primary motivators for most people to be high performers, or in any accomplishment, are the reward or fear, right? The carrot or the stick. Um, and if you have a demanding job or demanding business, this is so true. You probably have a lot of both financial reward and stability, right? You also have the fear of not providing for your family or paying your bills or having this company fail and all the people who work for you. Um, you know, you feel a sense of obligation to them, feel some responsibility, as you should, and it's fantastic that you take this on. You are what makes, again, the economy run. You are what makes, like the U.S. You are what makes the U.S. great. Okay, if you're in a different country, you are driving your economy. You are one of the drivers of your economy, and your country needs you, and it needs you to live longer, right? Because it needs your wisdom and experience and your drive. And if you burn out or you neglect your health, and suddenly you have a catastrophic health event in your 50s or your 60s that takes you out, that's a great loss, not just to you and your family, but to the country in which you live, to the economy which you help create. So again, I'm not knocking you. I'm here to help you perform better and perform for a longer period of time in your given field. And that's it. You need a balance. There is a balance. There's a place for fear. There's a place for reward, and those drive it. But has to be a balance that, and this applies to your health as well. It applies to, you should have a healthy fear of not getting lifestyle diseases. Okay. Not getting heart attacks and strokes, diabetes, right? Cancer. And you should want that reward of long-term health, longevity, or a long health span. Okay. Not just living longer, but living longer, healthier in a healthy place. Um, we all need a balance of both of those, uh, which drives us towards success, right? In both health and our career. We want a healthy dose of, responsibility for our business and for the people that work for us and for our families, and a healthy dose of enjoying the rewards of our labor, right? Hunger, hunt, feast. So I named the podcast Hunger. It's a drive, right? Hunt, it's your work. That's your efforts you put in there. You go after it. And the feast is a reward. Okay. But that feast needs to be a healthy reward. It needs to be a good reward. And the hunt needs to be, like, again, in your 40s and 50s, you're a smarter hunter. All right. In your 20s and 30s, you could push it and your body can handle it. You could do the 60, 70-hour weeks, living on whatever you could fit in your mouth between calls and meetings, and maybe, a little too much alcohol to take you down from the stress. You could push those limits. Lack of sleep, right? Bad diet, alcohol, maybe skipping a lot of exercise. But now it's going to catch up to you. You get in your 40s, in your 50s, start pushing 60. You're probably already having problems if you're in your 50s. You're having high blood pressure. Maybe your blood sugar is a little too high. Your doc's telling you triglycerides are too high. You're getting thick around the middle, right? You got that visceral fat building up around the organs, liver, which gets eventually pancreas, heart. You start having all these problems from that visceral fat. And you're not careful. You're so focused on your career, which is, again, fantastic, but you're going to sacrifice your health on the altar of that success. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants that for you. So you have to manage the stress from your job, but you also need to change your lifestyle to help your body manage that stress as well, because your chances are your stress level, or what is demanded of you, is not going to change. If anything, it might increase as you develop that, depending on where you are in your career. But you're in your 40s and 50s, you're peaking. You're in your best performing part of your life, right? Your most productive years in your career. And you've worked hard to get there, and you don't want to waste it, as you shouldn't. You should be taking advantage of those opportunities as they come. You're the expert now. People are coming to you for solutions, and they want to pay you for it, right? You're that is worth, because you've worked your whole life to get there. That's worth taking advantage of, but you have to be smart about it. And you have to consider your health in your strategy. In your strategy to take advantage of your career opportunities right now, your health has to be part of it. It cannot be an afterthought. You can't afford to kick it down the road any longer. It's important to keep you in that game longer, so that you can get to the point where you can enjoy everything you've worked for, okay, with your loved ones, and spend time with your loved ones in a healthy state, right? Not with them caring for you because you've had a heart attack. Again, not a dig at you. This is for your benefit, because as a high performer, it may allow for a blind spot, a vulnerability, and your health is your greatest liability or vulnerability in this point. Now, for all of us in 40s and 50s, and especially pushing towards 60, your health is your greatest vulnerability. But don't let it be a blind spot. You need to address it. You want to keep eyes on it. If it isn't measured, it isn't managed. You know that from your business. We apply it to your health. Otherwise, you're gonna miss out on what you've been working for. You're gonna miss out on some of it, and it forced to be. If you address it correctly, again, you will have more and more productive years. Okay, more of them, and they'll be more productive than if you were dealing with these struggles, these blood pressure, okay, triglycerides, visceral fat, all these things that create metabolic disease that lead to the heart disease, the cancer, the stroke, right? The diabetes. And maybe, you're starting to feel some of this now. You're not sleeping as well. You're stressed out. You might be having those markers I talked about, like those metrics from your blood work. Maybe you're having some brain fog. feeling some fatigue at the end of the day. And because you're eating stress sandwiches all day, right? And then again, grabbing the most convenient food you can find or get somebody to run out the door to get for you between meetings, between phone calls. And then at the end of the day, again, stress is built up. You're looking for that drink to bring you back down so you can calm down, try to enjoy your evening, try to have a lighthearted conversation with your spouse or your kids and not be thinking about work the whole time, not be on that amped up level. Um, and it's not good for you. If you really think about it, it's not a great idea, but it works, doesn't it? That's the scary thing about alcohol. It's effective in how we use it. It does that. It does its job. It does it well. The problem is, of course, with the effect it has on our liver and other hormones. It's going to hurt you if you're continuing to manage your stress that way. And so whether it's the feeling of success or fear that drives you most, at this point in your life, you can't afford to continue at that pace. Because again, it could lead you to an event that takes you out. Now, some of you might have brought some of that same level of intensity to your what we might call a health habit. Your competitiveness. Okay, so if you're in this area, you're competitive, guaranteed. You're a competitive person, whether it's against yourself or other people. You are competitive. You're always raising the bar for yourself, right? And so if you've brought that into, along with your career, along with your competitive, your driven, high performing career aspirations, you've brought in a level of competitive sport or practice that keeps you healthy, right? Working out. So whether it's marathons, triathlons, ultra runs, biking, some sort of competitive level event, sporting type event, right? That, because that's probably more motivating for you than just exercising, working out at a moderate pace, right? You're competitive. So you have to win. You like the feeling of winning. And that's, again, not a dig. It's how you're built. It's how you're wired. It's what makes you successful. But you are bringing that into your health practice to a point that is perhaps sacrificing your health at the same time, because you've got your demanding career, then you bring in a demanding competitive level of a sport. Okay, most professional athletes, that's all they do, or they have a season and they're pushing it for that season. That's all they do for that season. They do their sport. They're not running their businesses in. So you're doing both. You're putting in 50 hours a week easy at your business. And you might be putting in another, I don't know, 10, 15 to your sport training, like a high school athlete or a college athlete. Maybe more than that. But you're noticing, if you haven't already, injuries, right? Fatigue, some inflammation, right? What you would call increased cortisol levels, right? Because you've got all this stress going and you've got some inflammation going, and you've got these cravings built up where it's like, you might be eating well, then all of a sudden, hey, I've done all this, I'm starving, and you dive into whatever it is your thing is. Someone brings into the office the donuts, bam, ice cream. Okay. End of the day, hard to resist because you create this stress level and this intense demand on your body, and you want comfort. And that fat, carb, sugar, fat combo triggers the dopamine, just like winning does, just like competition does. And it makes you feel better. And it's comfort. And we all are susceptible to that. It hits all of us. Everybody feels that from the food. But because you are training on such a high level, maybe at first it didn't have such an impact on you. You could get away with it. It didn't stick to you because you're burning it off. But now it's starting to pick up around the middle, visceral fats building, Again, it's not good food, but you're starting to think of it just as calories, right? And not the actual impact it's having on you hormonally and having on insulin, having on what your liver has to do to process that. Um, Sacrificing sleep. So there goes more cortisol levels, more cravings, plus you're not getting the recovery. And you might be sacrificing relationships, time with people you care about, because again, you're pushing a demanding career, demanding competitive sport, um, with a desire to perform at a level you did in your 20s and 30s. Um, but you're over 40 now, and you can't recover from the stress like you did. So, um, because, well, let's dig into it. You're you're competing year round this way, right? So a competitive athlete again has a season, and then they're off season, and you're pushing this level in both career and sport all year long. There's no off season for you because you're just going, going, going. You feel like it's not enough anyway. You feel like you're not doing enough anyway. And if you got this weight gain around the middle stacking up on you, or you got all these health concerns, oh, more is better, right? Got to push harder, got to do more. So you may want to do a marathon, triathlon, one of the challenge runs, like a go ruck or one of the, a mud run of some sort. And that's great, but be smart about it. And realize you're running a business, or you're CEO, you've got a career that's very demanding. You have family obligations, I'm guessing, or some sort of relationship obligations. And so doing an event like that, let's say every quarter, let's say you're doing one every 3 or 4 months, that might be more than you really need to be doing. That's might be more than you can handle, more than your body can recover from, and more than you can manage with everything else. Um, and it may be causing you to be a little short-tempered, edgy, anxious, maybe not letting yourself relax, feeling guilty for relaxing, or having a day off from things, on the weekend, um, or justifying the unhealthy food binges with your exercise routine. But that overall sense of guilt at resting and just taking time away from both of those, from your competitive, from your driven endeavors. Um, this isn't, in most cases, I mean, it might be, but in many cases, it's not really driven by reward or by recognition. It's often driven by the stick, right? It's driven by fear. Um, to and that's what gets you to push through the stress and the physical pain you might be in this nonstop competitive season that you're in. The pain that ignore, because that's what it takes to win, right? You have to ignore pain. You have to sacrifice. You have to um, you have to push through. You have to push through things that other people aren't willing to push through. Sacrifice in ways that other people aren't willing to sacrifice, because that's what's gotten you this far. And you're absolutely correct in that belief. That's how you got here. You did more than others were willing to do. And that's fantastic. However, this phase in your life, everything cannot be at a maximum level. And you have to again be smarter about it, not just all out effort to win at all costs, because the cost right now is your health. Um, your body is again taking the toll for your success in both your career and your sports performance. And so it's time to change your tack, whatever the case, whether it's just all career and you're neglecting your health, or it's your career and this sport that you've brought in supposedly for your health, but really it's just adding to this competitive driven stress, creating another physical side of it, um, that allows you to justify some things, pushing that edge. Um, Either case, it's time to change your course and the way you're approaching it. It's time to change your strategy before, again, you're forced into it. Um, and you've got to probably change the way you motivate yourself, um, because that fear Let's face it, it's fear of failure. Okay. And if you're highly driven, you've got it. We all have it, but you've got an extra dose, just like an extra dose of success and drive and sacrifice. You have an extra dose of fear of failure. Even though you might be very well established, you might have money in the bank, established career, everybody's coming to you. People are going to still keep coming to you. That's what you use to get you there. And there's might be a little bit of that as a habit or of something that worked for you before, where you mentally and emotionally take yourself to a point to drive yourself to push through, to keep you going with a fear of failure. And that can work again, career or in your competitive sport. You create fear to push through. I say create because you're exaggerating it in many cases. At this point in your life, you're already disciplined. You're a disciplined person. You're successful. You know how to do your job. When you're 20s and 30s, you don't know much. You don't know many people. You don't have the experience or the background, the track record, but you have a lot of energy. So you can do that. You can push through. And you where you lack in wisdom, you make up for in hustle. Not that you give up hustle, but you're not going to, because that's not part of your nature. But you have to understand you're not 20 or 30 anymore. You've got to pull back on the physical output and allow for recovery, allow for rest, allow for, or make time for the good nutrition, okay, and sleep in order to perform where you need to perform. But it's not going to look the same. And you've got to stop using that extreme level of fear. You are not going to, you're a disciplined, you're established. You're not going to just decide not to go to work. That's not going to happen. And as long as you continue to just do what you already know how to do, rely on your experience, and show up in the way that you do. You show up with excellence anyway, but you don't need to be driven with fear. And it doesn't need to be this extreme level of push that taxes you so much physically. And I think you probably know what I mean, but you don't know how to do it differently. And that's fair. But start by not using fear as your primary motivator, fear of failure, because that's creating more stress and more of that cortisol and more of the physical problems that come from that. You should be proud of where that hustle has gotten you, but it's time to change strategy. Because most people never achieve your level of success. But now you need to let what you did serve you, because that tact, that method, that strategy of the fear and the extreme hustle and sacrifice isn't serving you now the way it should. It might serve you just in one area, but it's not serving you your whole life. It's having a negative effect on your health. So it's time to start delegating. It's time to start delegating task blocking time for healthy meals, movement, rest, right? Sleep, time with loved ones, time with the people who are important to you. That is not work related. It's time to let yourself recover and enjoy what you've created. Getting adequate sleep, even if that means sacrificing those super early workouts, the sleep is vital. Staying up to 11, whether that's for work or because you're spending time with your family, and then waking up at 4:30 to go to workout. So 5 hours later, five and a half, that's not healthy. So something as a regular habit, okay, it may happen now and then, but if that's kind of a typical schedule for you several times a week, I mean, something has to give. And if you keep up with that, what's going to give is your health. Um, you Now you may need to create some sort of get some help with this, have some accountability, another set of eyes, because yours are a little bit skewed. You're just used to doing things this way. You might need someone else to bounce things off of. Um, so again, what isn't measured isn't managed, right? And you may need a coach. If you're at this point in your life, you've probably had mentors and coaches before. If not, this is your blind spot. This is your weak spot. If you're experiencing these problems with the blood work, the weight gain, the stress, the lack of sleep, it's a blind spot. You're going to need some help. You're going to need someone to help you rework this, right? And change your lifestyle. Um, it's not someone you're married to, just to clue you in. Okay. Um, they're going to be glad that you got help. They're going to be happy that you changed things, but it's not them. So don't worry. But you need someone who can shed some light on where your problems are and help you make the changes and change your lifestyle. So it's not just a temporary fix. This is not about a 60-day run of health and cleansing. And this is changing the way you live. Okay. And there might be some extra push to get you, to change some markers, to get some weight off, to change some of the metrics in the blood work. There might be an extra push there, and then you can kind of let off the gas a little bit in your lifestyle. But for the most part, it should look very similar to maintain a healthy lifestyle. You're not coming back to this stress level and the breakneck speed and neglecting your health. You don't get there and get freeze dried, right? If you want it to be maintained, you're going to have to maintain the healthy lifestyle. So again, you're excellent at what you do. Adjusting your schedule, getting some sleep is not going to cause you to fail. So let go of the fear of failure, and realize you're opening yourself up to more productive years of your life and to feeling better while you're doing it. So more productive work years, more productive career years, time with family, and even further recreation. It just needs to be at a pace that is manageable now. And that's just the reality. Or you're going to run out of time much quicker. Your health, again, is your biggest liability. And so you got to stop ignoring it. You have the means for it. So it's time to enjoy some of those means to offset your health and your relationships that you, again, something else you may have neglected in your pursuits. This is what you work for. This is the time to start enjoying it. Start in your 40s. Start as early as possible. You start in your 40s. Okay. If you're in your 50s, buddy, it's time. It's time. And that's the hardest part, is making the time. I know it's time. You don't have enough time to do all the things you want to do to accomplish. You're running out of time, not just in the day and in the week, because those years are flying by. You probably realize most of your years of your life are behind you rather than ahead of you. So it feels like you're running out of time. That's part of the fear. Completely understandable one. But if we want to have more time, you have to make time for this. You have to make time for nourishment. You make time for rest. You have to stop eating like a teenager. Okay, let's go there. Sodas or sweet tea, whatever, sugary drinks, pizza, fast food. Come on. Finishing the bag of chips, that kind of thing. That's not for you. There's no place in that in your life. If it happens, once every month or two, okay. On a weekly basis, no. Nope. Now I have a client who's really taken charge of his meals now. High performer, both in his career and his sport. And so he knew he had to adjust. But he's at lunch meetings all the time, right? So he basically has tells his clients or whoever he's having the lunch meeting with. It's like, I have got 4 or 5 restaurants. He's narrowed down to 4 or 5 restaurants where he knows he's going to get a lunch that that's going to fit with his goals, that fits into his strategy. Outside of that, it's a crapshoot, right? Because it comes up, he's not going to go to a restaurant where it's mainly all about rice or all about potatoes or a pizza place or something like that, or pasta. That doesn't fit his goals. So he's got 4 or 5 restaurants. So he can predict. It makes his life very predictable. It eliminates the decision fatigue of when you go to those places, you got to try to figure out how it works or just make a bad choice because it's the best that's there. 4 or 5 restaurants, you're going to meet him for lunch. It's at one of those restaurants. Here's your choices. Pick one of these. So he can predict. He knows what he's going to have for lunch because it fits his goals. It fits his strategy. Eliminate the decision fatigue. Narrow down your choices. You could get, if you're doing lunch in the office or at home, pre-made meals like Factor 75 and Trifecta. They have keto, they have paleo if you want to do that route. But again, eliminate the decision fatigue, eliminate the opportunities to go off plan. It might take you for a while logging your food into a food app like MyFitnessPal or one of these other, where you can see your macros. You can see how much protein, carbs, fats coming in. Okay. You make sure those, until you learn to hit those ratios properly just by eyeballing your plate, which you will over time, but you need to see what that looks like. So again, what is it measured? Is it managed? You're going to have to, not that you have to put your food on a scale, but you may need to track it for a while, let it tell you, what you're eating, and see what works, see what helps you meet those goals and fit your strategy, probably with the help of a coach, to get to where you want to go, until eventually you're going to be able to go to a restaurant, go to a party, or just at home, this is what I need to have on my plate. And I don't need that stuff. I don't need this. I have a small amount of this, and you'll know it. But at first, you're going to need the help of a tool to help you figure out what that looks like. Okay, here comes the very unpleasant news. In my experience, for weight loss, for anyone, okay, but primarily if you're over 40, you're going to have to limit alcohol intake. You're like, oh, here you go. In my experience, for the majority of people that I've worked with, you're going to have to limit your alcohol to 2 drinks per week, whether it's 1 drink on 2 nights, 2 drinks on 1 night. Any more than that, you might lose weight or your weight might stand still. But I just know, I've had people do everything else right, working out, eating right, but they're having 4 or 5 drinks a night, or a week, 4 or 5 drinks a week or more, sometimes a couple drinks 3 or 4 nights a week. Nothing happens, or they're losing like a quarter pound a week or nothing. They're stuck. Shift the alcohol back to 2 drinks a week or less, ideally, and things start moving again. It's because it's the effect on your liver. It's converted to fat in the liver. It comes down to your metabolism. It comes down to the liver, which regulates your blood sugar. It has a lot to do with whether you're burning fat or not. Okay. You're putting a toxin into it that has to deal with before it deals with all your other fuel. So it has an impact. 2 drinks a week, tops. That's your goal, to really see this moving forward. Now, once you get to goal weight, everything's fine, and you want to add another night in there, okay, but don't think you're going to get back to 5 drinks a week with a couple drinks. That's going to take you back to where you are now. It's just a terrible, unhealthy habit that it's going to take you in the wrong direction. And it's going to affect your sleep as well. Affect all sorts of things. It affects your sleep, affects your blood sugar, and the ability for your liver to process fat properly, fat burning. So you're going to need to set a sleep schedule, and one that works with your family and your work and your workouts. So we don't want to eliminate family life and the people that care about you and the people you care about. We don't want to alienate those people with a over ambitious schedule, right? Whether it's from, your desire to be healthier or a fear of failure with work. I mean, you've got to make time for those people, which means, if that means you get home from work and you need to spend a couple hours connecting, and that puts you in bed a little bit later than you think you need to go. If you go to bed, let's say you're getting up at 4 or 4:30, well, let's think about that. You need to be in bed no later than 9, right? Maybe 8:30. Um, that's a little hard to maintain with relationships, unless you're both on the same page with that. And if everybody's on the same page, great. But I can tell you with teenagers, yeah, I'm still bringing them home from practices when they were teenagers at 8:30, 8:45. Uh, you know, you finally get home from work, you have dinner, kids go to bed or whatever, just settle down. Time with your spouse, right? Um, may start at 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock. If you're in bed, that's going to affect your relationship. These things have to be considered. They are important. They're why you're doing what you're doing. If you're at least, I mean, if you're being honest, is it about you only? Or are you thinking about who you're providing for? They want a connection. Who you're working toward a life with in retirement, okay? Or just a life when you can let off the gas a little bit and enjoy it with. You want to be around, you want them to be around with you and connected to you. You've got to invest time with them and not take them for granted. They're just going to wait for you to make time for them. That's vital. And so that means sacrificing some of these other, it could be whatever your sport is. It could be the exercise time. Because I mean, getting up to get to the gym at, 5:30, you have to go to bed at 8. And that means that's time when your wife's up till 10 or 11, or your husband's up till 10 or 11. I mean, there's room for it. Maybe at certain days of the week. I'm just saying you need to consider relationships. You need to consider time with them and a way to get on the same page. Where you can invest in each other, while still making time for adequate exercise and making sure your meals right. So this sounds like a lot. Again, there will be things that have to be sacrificed. Time has to come from somewhere, right? So it's going to be scaled back from, if you're over competitive or highly competitive with a sport, you scale back from that. If it's something where you got something at work can be delegated, or managed better, so you can make time for home. There has to be room somewhere. You're going to have to find room for your family, for the people you're with, or they may not be there when you're ready for them. With your sport, make time for off seasons. Okay. Appropriate recovery. If you want to do those competitive sports, great, but make a season for it. So you're pushing it. Everybody knows this is the few months when you're all into it. Your schedule is pushed, but then it's got a deadline. It's over. It's at a time when it's done, and you scale back and you have more time for relationships, and you're spending more time taking care of yourself, not just pushing yourself. Think about it. Competitive athletes, college athletes, they have a season where they push. It's not a whole year. It's not even half a year in many cases. Sometimes it is. Depends on the sport. But for the most part, it's a few months, 3 or 4 months, maybe 5. And then they let off the gas and they recover, and everything changes. Their diet, their sleep, their regimen for exercise, everything changes to more recovery until they start ramping up again before the next season. And if you're supporting, another career and family, even more so, you need off time. So where you balance your intense movement with lighter movements, recreational movement. So it's walking, riding your bike at a non-competitive level. Okay. Non-competitive movement. So you definitely need intense movements. Strength training is good. Some interval training is good, but there's, not everything has to be about winning or beating yourself every time is not a level 10. It's about, you got to listen to your body. If it's injured, if it's worn out, if it needs sleep, it's not just about the schedule for you. For some of us out here, for some people out here, they haven't ever had a schedule. They don't have the drive. This is not the message for them. Okay. They're trying to fit it in because it's just, otherwise they're sitting on the couch. That's not you. That's not you. So you have got to learn when to ratchet back, okay, and focus on the things that matter, right? Smaller doses of the intensity with more time for recovery and rest, and get regular blood tests to keep an eye on those metrics. Get every 3 months or 6 months, whatever it is you and your doc decide. Keep an eye on the triglycerides, maybe your body fat. Get a scan often, monthly, body fat percentage. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on the blood work every few months, again, to make sure what you're doing and the changes you're making are affecting that properly. And you've got goals for those. You want to get those down to healthy levels, right? And so your lifestyle has got to match up with what your goals are. Not just weight loss, not just fitting into the pants, right? But about what your health is showing. And you may need some tech for that. You may need to get something like an Oura ring to help you track your sleep, a CGM to track your blood sugar, see what you're eating is affecting your blood sugar, and to get that under control. Tracking movement, calories is great if you have certain goals for that. Making sure like closing the rings on the Apple Watch or just getting steps in. That's great. But it needs to be specific to your goals. Sometimes if it's blood work related, CGM, sleep, things that help, logging the food in MyFitnessPal, those kind of tech things where you get kind of a measurement so you can manage it. And especially as you're making changes, because you don't know what good looks like, really. It's not part of your normal life. So to help change those habits, you might need some help managing it, a coach, some tech. It's a change of lifestyle, and it'd be very easy for you to slip back into old habits. But what you need to focus on right now, more so than results, and this is going to be hard for you because you're a results-driven person, is changing habits. It's changing your lifestyle habits that the results will follow. In other words, 6.5 to 7.5 hours of sleep, because for you that's a lot. I'm guessing you probably don't get 8 hours of sleep, but getting at least 6.5, 7 hours of sleep. If exercise is not a regular thing, getting regular exercise, making sure that for everybody, getting the meals in place, reducing snacks, good, healthy, high protein meals, 2 or 3 a day, excuse me. Maybe you're working in some intermittent fasting over time, changing habits that fit your plan, fit your strategy. Focus on changing the habits, because that's what gets you long term. If it's only goal driven, when you hit the goal, you let off the gas, you go back to where you were before. Or if your goals don't, or you end up basically pushing through too hard beyond where you really should be, as you tend to do, driving through, right? Using your drive to get there. At an unmanageable or unmaintainable, unsustainable level, unsustainable changes, and you yo-yo back up. That's not going to work. It's got to be something that is sustainable long term. Where the changes come, they may be a little slower than they were the last time you did it, when you did this big charge forward, but they're consistent. They're changing your health markers, and it's enough that you see the change that's motivating. But it's habits. It's habits first. Change your win by changing your habits. And that's what the tech helps you do. You got a great sleep score. You got 6 to 7 hours of sleep, 6 days that week. Fantastic. You didn't snack. You only ate 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day all week long. Your goals are your habits. Your goals are what how you've changed your life. Okay. Didn't have, only had alcohol 2 nights that week. Those are the habits going to get you where you want to go. And the habits are the goal right now. A little different for you. There's no big flag. There's no trophy. There's no ribbon to run through yet. But you're changing habits. You're back in training to learn how to run, to learn how to move again. You've got it. It's changing the way you live. So again, you're here with us longer because we need you. We need you. And the people that love you need you. So if you have questions about this, feel free to reach out to me, zane@zanegreeks.com. I'm happy to point you in the right direction, maybe give you some tips on what you can do to get started. But this is a difficult change when you're used to driving forward, used to pushing through, you're used to sacrificing and ignoring pain and discomfort. And right now, this is a time that's not going to help you win. That strategy is no longer going to help you win with your health. Have a great week.